Okay, so our last presentation for the day, but not the least, is Asian American Student Experiences and Campus Climate, Insights and Impacts from the Asian Pacific American Research Center, also known as APARC. And our presenters are Peter Limthong Viratna, Diane Chandara, Ariana Young, she's not here, okay, and Thong Wang. Thank you so much. Welcome them.
All right, thanks everyone. Last of the day, so I know there's a lot of, it's been a long day and everything, so we're trying to hype this up and keep the energy going. My name is Peter Limthong Virat. I serve as the program coordinator for the Asian Pacific American Resource Center. And y'all, so I just wanted to give a brief overview before our presentation. And so we are going to share information from our annual external evaluation about the impacts of our work. We're going to share direct quotes from students and their experiences and focus a lot on the qualitative data on campus climate. And then we are also going to show some quantitative data about the growth of our center. And so we are 3 years young. This is the beginning of our third academic full year here. And so before we kind of get into APARC, I wanted to just give a snapshot of the community here. And so we have about 31,000 students here at the U. And of that 31,000 students, we have 4,000 students who identify as Asian American and Pacific Islander. And the breakdown is 3,939 who are Asian American, and then 99 who are Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. And this does not include international students. So this is all domestic-born API students. And we know that among the Asian American population, the Hmong, Vietnamese, and other Southeast Asians are the largest represented ethnically here on campus. And that makes a lot of sense given the context of Twin Cities being very heavy with Southeast Asian refugee communities here. And so because of the high amounts of API students here, we are an ANAPISI institution. And so that stands for Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander Serving Institution. And this is a federal designation from the Department of Education. And it's part of the Minority Serving Institution designations. And it was signed into legislation in 2007. And so this means that we were awarded a large grant to build capacity to support Asian American Pacific Islander students to help with retention and graduation and fulfillment here. And to qualify, you need to be 10% or more API students and also have a large portion of Pell Grant eligible students. So really this is focused on supporting our first generation college students, low SES students as well. And this is a 5-year grant. And so we are beginning the 4th year of this grant. And so just to kind of introduce ourselves, I figured videos would be nice too. And this is just made from one of our alumni and some of our student workers as well. Third time's the charm, right?
As AAPI first-year students, there are different challenges that we faced. Being on a large campus, there are moments where we felt a lack of community and belonging. We felt that we had to overcompensate our identities because no one seemed to understand or care.
We faced moments of racism.
We had a hard time sharing how we felt in certain spaces or asking for help.
Even trying to explain where our cultural values and beliefs came from were either embarrassing, discouraging, or a struggle to voice.
And sometimes we felt alone. But we realized that we're not alone. We found many students who also felt isolated or unacknowledged.
We found ways to connect with one another, to uplift each other, to empower each other.
Together, we created a welcoming community.
We don't get many opportunities to fully embrace our colorful histories, rich cultures, and vibrant identities.
Sometimes we have to find those opportunities ourselves.
Sometimes it's right there in front of us, and all we need to do is step forward and open the door.
Thankfully, that door is here. That door is APARC.
APARC is a place where you can embrace your AAPI identity.
A place where you can feel empowered to further your college journey, and a place to relate with one another and learn your shared narratives.
A place where you can find academic support, mentors.
Along with your peers, you can create a place where you won't feel so alone.
Here, you can find a place that feels like home.
Together,
we are
APARC.
So just to share the context of the video, I was approached by one of our former student workers who was monumental in creating our peer mentorship program through the horizontal leadership that I mentioned earlier. And he loves videography, so he's like, hey, like, if you need anything, I'll help out. I'm like, you want to make a video for us? And so he worked over the summer during our student worker training. And then those were all of us, our current student, some of our current student workers. And so we just kind of posed three simple, like just a couple questions where to help them reflect on like, why is APARC important? What were their experiences on campus? And so they created the script. We ran around campus to film it in 2 hours. And then we shared it with all the incoming first years. And so I guess last thing about the video, we want to shift, in terms of APARC outreach, we've noticed that we need to change how we're marketing to our students. We need to get away from heavy text. They're not reading it, they're ignoring it. Even flyers and infographics they kind of scroll past. And so we wanted to make more videos, more multimedia content that are much more easy to digest for students. And so we started to make videos throughout this year. This is just the first one. We created another one for our promo for Aspire. And then we just kind of created more throughout the year too, using GIFs and things like that, or just more pictures, a ton of pictures. So we tried to do a holistic set of support for API students. And so we have a physical resource center. We have programs focused on culture, identity, and histories and storytelling. And we have academic support tutors in-house. And we do a lot of community building and leadership development here. And so this is just a brief list of our programs. And so I'm not going to go through it, but the one I'll just highlight briefly, because we're going to talk about it for the rest of our presentation, is the Aspire Peer Mentorship Program. This is a student, horizontally run program where our student workers create the curriculum, do the trainings, do the facilitation of workshops, plan the recruitment, the marketing, everything of the program. And it's really our flagship program. And then we do a bunch of other things too. Oh, yeah, sorry. I forgot to mention this too. So for the remainder of this presentation, the data is going to be focused on Asian Americans, since that is the dominant community that we have been working with in our peer mentorship programs, in everything that we do.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi. Okay, great. So as Peter mentioned, we have a lot of different programs. Unfortunately, we've been able to collect a lot of data from those programs, and they are both qualitative and quantitative. A majority of our presentation is going to use qualitative data, just because that's how we understand, or we think that by telling the students stories and words from themselves will help you think through better what it means to them. So our various data collection tools, we draw from program applications or registration forms. We have various questions on those. We always use attendance forms at our events, and then we have feedback forms from those events in order to get responses on what we're doing well in those programs, but also what we can do to make it better. And then we've conducted several internal studies that were conducted by external researchers and evaluators, and a lot of our data that we're going to talk about comes from those individual reviews. Oh. Okay. We had a different slide that talks about the themes that that we are drawing from, and these themes in particular come from the data comes from these application forms that students have used to get into the Aspire program that Peter mentioned about, which is our flagship mentorship program. And some of the themes from those applications are this idea of lack of sense of belonging, lack of representation, lack of being included in the overall community, and general lack of support. So I wanted to note that these are direct quotes from new students who are applying to Aspire. So that means when this was collected, it was like 1 month into them being college students. So this speaks to students already knowing what they want and what they need when they're coming into the university. And it's not as though they've been at the university and are feeling these things that they need from the campus. And I think that this speaks to the larger societal issues, because students coming from high school already know these are the things that I need in order to survive. These are the things that I need in order to be supported, and talks through the ways that we have a responsibility to serve these students. In this first one here, a student talks about how they are the only Asian student among their white friends. This idea that they don't belong because there's this underlying prejudice that they feel. In this next one, a student says, being a first-generation college student comes with its own unique sets of questions and challenges. So here the student talks about the importance of understanding success, not only for them, but in a lot of Asian American cultures and communities, how family looks like, and thinking about their own selves wrapped up around their family. And so the student speaks to the ways that first generation college students don't have a support system, not having someone who has already gone to college to help them navigate those institutions, and that they have this fear of failure in a way that they hope Aspire can help them unpack. In these next 2 points, students talk about growing up surrounded by a mostly white population, and the ways that they want to feel proud of their Asian American identity and their Asian American culture. They talk about the U being a predominantly white institution, and again, the idea that folks aren't understanding where they're coming from. But that they hope Aspire is a place where they can learn about this sense of community and learn about their own identities. In this next few points, students talk about, a student says, I've always tried to stay true to my culture and take pride within my identity. So here in these 2 points, we want to highlight that students do recognize the strength of their communities, but also that it is complicated and complex when they come into an institution that doesn't help them better foster and cultivate that pride.
Just to apologize, we did make updates to our slides, and so the slides that we're using right now are not up to date. So that's why there's a little bit of like flow and confusion on our part. So apologize for that. So for the next section, we are going to pull from our annual report. This is the second annual report we have done from our external evaluator, who is Dr. Samuel Museus, who is a professor at UC San Diego and the director of National Institute for Transformation and Equity. And then Antong's going to go more in depth on the data.
All right, so this is again coming from the first part of the APARC annual report that we had done, I think, in spring. And so some salient elements that came out from the Aspire or the APARC report was that cultural familiarity space, meaning that students come to APARC and Aspire having a sense of not having to explain who they are. And it's because as Asian Americans are diverse in the way that they live and also with the way they come to understand, being in this space with other folks who are like themselves, they don't really have to talk about what kapong is, which is a food, right? And also the share common experience of growing up in a predominantly white space. And also a sense of community where a home away from home, similar to myself, where I'm a graduate student here at the university. I'm from California, but then coming here to the University of Minnesota, APARC, I found a home in APARC. Moving from there, a resource of network, meaning that students who are in Aspire get a chance to really network among each other and also share resources that are not already apparent or already being shared among the university campus. Moving from there, talking about holistic support systems, in these spaces, students get to network and also get to know each other. They also then provide critical support for each other that are not already provided through the university. And in this way, there weren't specific examples, but these are some of the reports that were sort of brought up. Moving from there, talking about space and learning about critical issues, and Inspire students get to sort of discourse about what, and also learn about what is currently impacting their current community right now. And by learning about storytelling, students are able to express some of these issues that are impacting them directly and also their communities. From the Aspire space, knowledge acquisition, students are coming to understand not only how their identities are one, but they have multi-entities that sort of cross over with the idea of intersectionality, where people who are from different community understand and experience issues and racism and oppression differently, and then also then understanding that not only as Asian American, we go through a lot of issues, but other communities do as well. However, those issues are experienced differently in those spaces, in their respective communities. And moving to a better understanding of Asian American communities, where it's an increase of, in that space of Aspire students are learning that it is important for them to also understand how the university are understanding their community as well. And so these are some of the things that came up with data disaggregation, and also with how diversity with the Asian American community are categorized in the university. And also then moving on to greater understanding of oppression and privilege as students who also come from the Asian American community, moving on to understanding how their identities are impacted through systemic issues such as racism and sexism. And then also then coming to understand how they come to internalize those. Identity development is one that sort of came out that's very apparent through Aspire and through this report, is that students come to understand better a sense of their Asian American consciousness, developing their own racial identity, moving from there to then valuing their own heritage and history. And it also in a sense allow them to sort of reclaim their own voice and expression through language and culture. Then moving on to the idea of a greater commitment towards also passing on these knowledge and sharing it with the APARC and also the greater community. And then moving on to this idea of fostering and eventually seeing that these knowledge eventually will have a great impact to them as they move out of the university to new career spaces.
So now I wanted to transition a little bit to growth of APARC. I mentioned earlier that this is the third full academic year that we will have been running. And so first off, I wanted to share some statistics of enrollment. And so each year since 2016, we have grown, the API community has grown. From 11.2% up to 12.9%. And so number-wise, that's 500 students here on campus more who identify as API and more that could fit in this room that we're in right now. And I think that's important to think about because that means the needs of API students are growing and we need to try to think about how can we continue to support them with the resources that we do have. And so when it comes to APARC, so this is APARC visits. So this is all the times that students have gone into our center and used the different resources. And so similarly to MK, this is captured through UCard data. And so there's a lot of different things that they're coming in to do that, you know, isn't like captured in the pure numbers. So just share what are some things that students do when they come to the center. They come to study, they come to use our computers to print, they come to have their meetings for their student organizations, or if they have study groups and projects. And student groups often have events and meetings in our space. And so for these numbers, we wanted to like highlight that we started from scratch in spring 2017. Only 213 visits were done. And then we've had rapid growth since then. And so minimally, we have grown 44%. And that is the lowest growth number of the last 2.5 years that we have been here, which I think is a really important thing to really celebrate, that we are growing, students are finding out about ourselves and realizing that they need and want these resources. I calculated the fall 19 and 20 statistics based off of the proportion of how many school days have passed already versus how many school days in the school year. And so we're projected to be at 5,400 students, or 5,400 visits to APARC. And so this is, that was just the center usage. And so we wanted to highlight just some statistics from our programs too. We have a first year orientation event, and we've grown from 68 to 143 students. For our peer mentorship program, we started off with 22 mentors and 24 mentees in year 2. And the second year, we grown 50% to 33 mentors and 39 mentees. And this year, we've grown a little bit more. And that doesn't capture the amount of mentees who are applying. We had to cap our applications at 65, and that was like, I think after only sending 3 emails to students. And so students really wanted to be a part of the program, but we didn't have capacity to accept them. In terms of Aspire, I'm going to share a different number. I apologize again, this number was not updated. So when it comes to Aspire, we run events throughout the entire year on a biweekly basis. We have dialogues focused on identity, culture, and history, or social justice themes. So for example, imposter syndrome, radical self-love, mental health. The full number of attendance of these events in year 2 was about 270 students. And then the following year, year 3, was 620 students. And so once again, we have growing students, or growing attendance and engagement with our students. Okay, so.
All right, so moving from that to then refocusing on the second part of the APARC report that was done in the spring, and going on the idea of like linear growth of our impact, and also our ability to engage with the community at large, the campus community. We're looking at campus-wide impact, and there are sort of these 3 themes that sort of came out from reports from staff on campus and also student leaders here on campus. The idea of APARC as a space where students are able to have discourse about identity, and how those identity can then affect how services are conducted or programming are conducted. And so with that being said, from our feedback that we get from our events, we understand that by taking up those different feedback, will eventually allow us to better understand how students are thinking about their own identities, and also the barriers that they face as Asian American students. And also then discussing how students take up resources, which speaks against the model minority myth where all Asian American students are doing well. Moving from there, we also saw that APARC was a space where students also, APARC was a space where staff felt that because APARC exists, it's a space where Asian American staff feel like they're less tokenized now, as there's a space and more staff are sort of coming out of that space. It also then increased the visibility of Asian American students and instilling a sense of pride for Asian American staffs who are here on campus and increasing their own understanding of how their identity impacts their ability to then serve Asian American students as well. Moving from there, another piece here talks about the symbolic space of APARC. APARC as a place where it serves to provide space for students who discourse, also provide this element of showing that the university has a commitment to Asian American experiences and by legitimizing by having a physical space. So a lot of the faculty and student leaders really spoke about this throughout their report. Moving on from there, campus-wide impact, since we've only been here for about 3 years, but then really just 2.5 because we started mid-year, our ability to sort of then connect with campus partners throughout the university has been really amazing. We felt that within just this 2 years, we're able to connect with folks who, and these connections are mainly conducted through events and also event planning and our partnership with bringing students from different parts of the campus to APARC and also providing insights on different type of resources that are here available at the university.
So I'm gonna wrap up with just talking about our future challenges. And so it's a bit of like a kind of like elephant in the room kind of thing. Once I mentioned earlier that this grant is a 5-year grant and we are in year 4 of this grant, meaning that our funding will cease in 2 years. And as of right now, and the funding comes from the federal government. And so as of right now, the grant has not been renewed so there is no funding in Congress. And so right now, we're in this point where we want to continue to do this amazing work. We have grown rapidly in the last 3 years. And so I think that's just kind of something that's kind of up in the air and in terms of uncertainty. But some things I wanted to highlight was after the news kind of broke out, students really wanted to share their voices on how they felt. And so they participated in this national campaign where they read some, they kind of wrote, it was one of those picture campaigns and the prompt was, ANAPZ is important to me because X, Y, Z. And we had about, I think, 40 students who proactively did this on their own too. We didn't organize this, the students took lead on it. And I'm just gonna read a couple of their statements. ANAPZ is important to me because it helps me support the future education of future AAPI students. ANAPZ is important to me because students that look like me deserve resources to support their identities. ANAPZ is important to me because it gives me support with a community that actually cares about me. And ANAPZ is important to me because the API community deserves a place where they belong. Thank you. That's for our formal presentation. And the remaining time, we'd love to answer any questions that folks may have about the data or the work that we've done.
We were just curious where you're located.
We're located in Appleby, the 3rd floor. Fun fact, it used to be a chemistry lab and then it was renovated to be this space. Hmm?
Thank you. Regarding the funding, is there still time?
Yes, there's still time. I haven't checked in a couple weeks, but it was not brought to the floor. So there is still time for it to be negotiated and kind of decided upon in Congress, in the Senate specifically. So we're crossing our fingers. We're going to keep on doing the important work that we're doing, but hopefully we will find out soon so that it helps us think about like the reapplication process and kind of giving us some hope for the future too. I know our students were really distraught when they found out, to the point like some were shaking, some were really angry. They called their representatives too to ask for support.
And that was my follow-up. I mean, if we contact our representatives or legislators, is that going to go anywhere? Is there anyone who is championing this effort to Congress?
Rachata, would you want to talk about, because we have had, yeah.
The answer to the first part is yes. We can all call our representatives and advocate for it. At the national level, the university, and actually Lisa Marshall from our offices here, we've been in connection with U Relations because we have our legislative liaison in DC who has been monitoring this. And it seems like it's currently in limbo. We haven't heard otherwise. The door is not shut, but it's part of the larger political process. Nationally, I know there's a lot of activity in that ANA-PC week that Peter mentioned. There was a lot of national activity on this, so there's a lot of people working on it, but it's still uncertain. So anything that people can do on individual levels to advocate for it does matter. And it's only once the funding is available that we can apply for the next level of grants. And that's a competitive process as well. There's no guarantees, but at least the door opens for the application to happen. So.
Thank you.
Thanks. And also, it's my understanding that the Minnesota representatives are voted in a positive way toward this. So if you know anyone in other states, that actually might be a place to contact representatives in others, because basically the representatives that would be contacting are for this. So yeah, if you have any friends in other states, perhaps encourage them to contact the representatives. Thank you.
Perhaps my question is grant ignorant, but where do you report to in the institution? And would the institution just say, there's value in this programming, so we need to invest in this and not have to call our legislatures, and fund the program? So are you reporting somewhere where are you reporting in the organization?
Yeah, little complicated. So I know logistically, we, a lot of our, finances, like financial reconciliations, comes from the Department of Curriculum Instruction. So their administrative staff help us with like the behind the scenes work. And it's because the principal investigator of the grant is a faculty member in the Department of Curriculum Instruction.
Yeah. So to add to that, and the way it sort of has transpired that the federal designation was applied for and received through Office for Equity and Diversity. But then the actual grant application was done by joint co-PIs from CLA, the College of Liberal Arts, and the College of Education and Human Development. So Professor Bick No from CHD and Professor Josephine Lee. So they're the co-PIs on the grant. So currently that's where the budget is for the programming. But absolutely, I think that's the thing that we need to think about institutionally, that if the federal grants are not received, what does this mean and what value does this program offer? And it's for our institutional offices to kind of think about it. So that was a great question. No.
Any other questions?
Just wondering, what do you do let me speak English. Do you do work with other affinity groups?
You mean like other students of color? I would say It's like, it depends on the initiative. So I know my supervisor worked on this more, but he worked a lot with the IMEN initiative, which was focused on men of color. We've done other collaborations. So actually just like a couple of days ago, we supported the Women's Center to have a speaker panel that focused on like masculinity across different like identities too. So I think we try to like reach out as much as we can and keep our doors open, but it is that tricky balance of like being an identity specific center. We want to uplift that specific narrative, but we also don't want to be insular and like not reach out. And so I know we try to like send out our information on our events because they are helpful too. So I know in the past we sent out some information on the career related workshops. And so I think that goes back to all the different partners that we worked with in the past. It's not about changing what you do,
but I think that one of the things that helps all of us is for all of us to work together. And so that's really what the question was. I mean, I pay attention to what you guys are doing and I love that. But I also think about how working together with our different groups, how we can create a more inclusive environment for all of us.
Thank you for that.
I have one question. It was great to see you showed the data about Pacific Islanders too, that in our institution. And I'm wondering what you're seeing, hearing from Pacific Islanders specifically, and if there's programming that you're planning towards it. And then the second question related to that is how does intersectionality factor in?
Yeah, so Diana, you want to answer the second part? Okay, so the first part is this is definitely an area of growth for us. We have, I remember starting our second year, we tried to work and connect with one of the student leaders who a PI student, and so we were trying, so we asked her to like kind of be part of like a panel and share that narrative. I think it is a struggle because a lot of PI students don't come to APARC. And so we're still trying to figure that out. How can we support? I know like a month ago, we did do a collaborative event with American Studies to support bringing in like a PI author who also kind of wrote about like the intersection of being queer and PI. And so when it comes to intersections, Diana can talk more about that because we've been doing more of that this year.
So a lot of our students think about their Asian American identity and then they think about their gender identities. But for me, I've been thinking about the ways that we need to, what I'm calling queer APARC. And so the last event that I helped host, we had over 20 students showed up, so that meant a lot to us, telling us that students wanted a space where they can talk about their queer identities as interrelated to their Asian American identities, because while our name is obviously focused on our racial and ethnic identities, I think that means that sometimes we forget the students come in with all these other identities as well. And so in that space, students talked about how a lot of them don't know any other queer Asian Americans. And so I was one of the first person that they're like, oh, there's another queer Asian American also, right? And so we're trying to figure out how to foster that space, because when they go to other queer spaces, they're like, yeah, they're also queer, but they don't really understand my family, or they don't really understand how culture plays into this. And so this is something that we're trying to get started.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.